Am I still recording? Can anybody tell? Okay. How are you all? You okay? I like to watch when people join. Some wait till it's 3 seconds before noon or whatever hour it is where you are. Others get here 20 minutes ahead of time. I used to be of the 20 minutes ahead of time variety. You know, the spiritual trip as envisioned by Robert Ramana to an extent. Nisargadatta was different. He didn't have that much devotional explicitly expressed in his teachings, although they had noisy bhajans every morning. But devotion and deep devotion really help, allows you to get rid of stuff that you don't need or doesn't belong in you, that takes you away from realizing your own self. By my own self, I mean what I experience after I let go of the world and of my own mind, and what my mind does to create a world. It requires you to become very direct and simple-minded. You get rid of all the thinking, all the musings about what is happiness, what is immortality, who is Ramana, who's Nisargadatta, who's better, who's worse. I think the admonition, don't think if not necessary, about encapsulated. It means the primary and ultimate step both include getting rid of the mind and enter the space of just experiencing. And that is reduced to become dumb as a rock. I like that term. Dumb as a rock. You shed your mind in order to reacquaint yourself with deeper levels of yourself that the process of civilization has blinded you to. How many here could imagine themselves 10 years ago that you'd like nothing more than to be quiet, alone with yourself? Is that something people were dreaming of 10 years ago? You thought there was something much more than that to spirituality. You're right, there is. There are so many samadhis one can go through, so many different states. And no matter how many you go through, they're just icing on the cake of self-realization. Michael's back. When you realize that spiritual progress means you cut your attachments to the world. You say, oh, there's nothing to that. I'll do that easily. That's not true, because what you are now is part divine and beyond mortality. And a large part of you is that human being that was born 30, 50, 70, 90 years ago. That's learned to be quiet because it's so peaceful. But still wonder about what the end state is like. I'll tell you, the end state is quite a blast. You could be thrown in prison, put in a dungeon. Who's your home? Who's your spouse? Who's your kids? Hopefully lose your mind. And after a while, still you will be happy. Delightfully happy, probably in a different way than you've ever known yourself, because now you're so quiet. Before you were happy because you were boisterous and something spectacular happened in your life, or you were just feeling really good for a while. But this kind of happiness that you get from transcending the mind is something utterly different. There's a peace in it that is so profound because you don't need to do anything anymore. Everything that you thought your life was aiming at 10 or 20 or 30 years ago is dropped. And instead, you just live in the moment. And the reason you do that is because the moment can become so happy and blissful. And I use that term bliss with the remark that that's not quite it. Degree of comfort and happiness that you've never had before. Because you're at peace, you're at rest. They could slap your ass in jail and you wouldn't even remark. It's okay. I kind of, in a way, dread what's going to happen to my body next. because I can feel. It's very different now than it was 60 years ago. And my life has been kind of my spirituality is recurrent losses of every sort that empty you out. Cat after cat we had die. Dog dies. A mother dies. A father dies. Relatives die. And yet we feel good. Because we're merely watchers of all these events. And when we watch ourselves in silence, it's filled with kind of a deep ecstasy, sense of being at home, gratitude of being alive, feeling energies throughout your whole body. These energies anchor you to the world. What attaches us to each other is, I guess, frequency of contact, love, a desire to attain something in ourselves that we don't know about now, or wanting to get rid of our minds, which we realize have been our bane. They tell us about the dreadful experience and death of people with dementia, gradually forgetting who they were. And begin rolling cigarettes down the street with their nose. They become avadutes. Those revered by the Lord because they have escaped the toe of the world and what the world understands and wants, dreams of. You've escaped and entered a kind of emptiness of thought. You desire nothing anymore. You're afraid of nothing because nothing can touch you, you think. But in fact, being attached to the earth is a lot more difficult to escape from than almost anything else you can think of doing. Our minds love to think. And even now, most spiritual practitioners, even if they live in a spiritual community, are filled with judgments, habits, fears, depression, mania. And overcoming these to becoming yourself is a hero's journey. And when you're rid of dominance by your own mind, realizing there's something deeper than your own mind, which is your bare existence, and living in that bare existence of self-realization brings great happiness. You're alone with yourself. And you feel your body. You feel the energies coursing through your body. This is especially active after your first experience of enlightenment. And then it becomes steady state. At first, the energies travel throughout your whole body. And they're very intriguing, very capturing, because many of them are associated with deep peace or extraordinary energy experiences. There's also many people that develop spiritual powers. And they throw themselves out of mainstream effective spirituality by engaging in the development of these spiritual powers, the samadhis, the ability to cure people and animals, the ability to bring deep states of existence to groups of people. You're actually pretty unlimited in what you can do the deeper you get into yourself. Because it's not your mind anymore, it's you. And it's this you that it's up to you to find. It's right there within your own perception. Just stop thinking and start observing inside yourself. Maybe the energies. Maybe you've got some Kundalini experiences that need to be transcended and completed. But there's a greater growing sense of happiness inside. But the happiness does not depend on the world at all. As a matter of fact, it depends on ignoring the world and all of the stories that connects you to the world. And then, like Siddhartha, settle down. You're very happy being a ferryman across the river Styx. You grow in your happiness. It doesn't depend on anything you do anymore. You're just happy with no known reason outside of the fact you're losing your mind. And by losing your mind, I don't mean it in the usual sense, but you're losing the mind by you don't pay much attention to it anymore. It's just there still gabbing in the background. Talk, 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 talk. Rate, 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 rate. Rate yourself. Rate your effort. And you self-punish yourself by some inner table of excellence that you have. This shirt that I'm wearing, it's the same thing I wore in satsang. What is it, 34 years ago? And I bought them at, I forget. They were very cheap. They were on sale. I love the color. I bought an extra 5, 6, 7 for myself and a couple for Robert. Robert loved them. One time he said to me, why don't we both wear these to satsang? That'll give them something to talk about. So we did for a couple of months before Robert burned out about doing it. But it led, I'm sure, to endless talk among the satsangis. Satsangis cling together through gossip. The ashram is built on gossip. It's what keeps us there, because it's still entertaining the mind with something to think about and something to do. And the mind holds on to that as long as it can to give itself a role of trying to figure out what surrender means in an ashram situation. But to clarify, the stages don't mean much, but the outcome of freedom from your own imagination, your own mind, your own judgments, your own past, requires a great deal of effort and momentum and drive for self-realization and what that means. Self-realization is nothing more than recognizing your ground state, the sense of being alive, of having a body, being still in that silence of one's own presence and the silence of the presence of your own guru. It's everything. Silence is throwing the mind away so that you can directly experience your ground state, what I call the zero state. The zero state where your mind isn't talking to you and urging you to do something, where you still feel restless and there's needed to be something accomplished, that something's missing. In the steady zero state, you know who you are. You've done the exploring. You've had so many experiences, thousands of experiences over the years. You've heard so many tall tales about what yanis can do and what bhaktas can do. Robert recognized that most of the people in satsang, or all of them, were attached to their personal lives, even though they may be trying to get away from their personal life because it's too painful. But in the back of their minds, they're still the stories they told a year before, 5 years before. But after you escape from stories and from words, the mind just becomes a tool you can use or not use, because you realize you're not your mind, you're deeper than the mind. Your awareness itself. And a deep state of awareness are of other processes in your existence other than the mind, like the sense of vitality, sense of power. This is way beyond the need for love or the need to know. This is realizing the state you're in before civilization is added onto you in the form of mental concepts, goals, civilization, and all of that. That's why so many Zen stories are of monks who have walked away. Read the Zen stories. They're telling you how to get out of your ordinary mind. Get beyond the ordinary mind. Get to know mind, which means your mind is not endlessly talking to you anymore. And you see the mind is not you. You exist well before the mind. And if your mind becomes still, or you force it to become still, or you play with it, you find that there's a life totally before your mind. And you throw away the mind for this new life, a life of peace, of depth, of way decreased or totally absent fear of death or anything else. So it's a marvelous place to visit, and then after a while to own as your own. Back then, I wished how much I felt the state that Robert was in. I couldn't match it at all. I had too many imaginations. Robert was a very simple guy. Yet he was very clever too. He knew he had an image as a guru, and he carried it because he was able to make money when before he couldn't work because of Parkinson's. He had been a handyman earlier in life. And it was hard to do that now because of Parkinson's. As a matter of fact, his wife told me that he spent the whole day before satsang trying to figure out what he was going to say at satsang. She washed him, dressed him. And for a while, Robert and I wore the same $7.99 saffron, I guess, colored shirt, so that the people would wonder what's going on between us two. And one day he lost interest in it and didn't dress up in it anymore. He used to look in my eyes sometimes, even put his hand on my head while we'd look at each other. Sometimes I found this very uncomfortable because it appeared that he was looking very deeply into me. And I was naked. And he'd hold me for 40 seconds or so. And he'd pull his hand back and sort of give a low laugh and say, "You're okay, Ed, you're okay." But it certainly didn't feel like it for those 40 seconds. He was looking at me, looking deep into my soul. I want to see some of the names. Is anybody new? David, how are you? Claudine, are you trying to figure out what to say?
Yes, I was, but I know who it is now. David Clare.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say I was wondering the same as you, but now I've discovered who you're talking about.
It's the most wonderful experience in the world to be in your own basement of existence, where you feel the constant ding of your own presence, which announces your existence to you. But as you more and more observe and own that deep state of just being yourself, aware of yourself, inside of yourself, that you find a place of such deep peace, you don't care anymore because you're at peace. You have no future plans anymore, just to be yourself without any vision, without any deep understanding. The understanding is just bullshit. It's a add-on. It's not the essence. The essence is to be drowned in your own sense of presence. You've transcended everything else ever taught at you that you should be or do. None of that matters anymore because you found yourself. All the depths of your own experiences available to you. And this is deeper than mind. Mind is when you step away and you calculate your thoughts. Now, most of this is dangerous because the mind speaks bullshit. But when you rest in yourself, that primitive primary self. There's no doubt. There's just energy and happiness. If I had been still more attached to the world, I would have bought hundreds of these shirts, calling them Robert Adams happy shirts that can be purchased with a grateful donation of $15 or so. Now I'd raise that to $23. But I don't mind anymore. I couldn't imagine doing something like that now. Many of you have been here for a number of years. I appreciate you and your presence in our satsangs. You know, there's a phase you go through where you're actively throwing away your entire life and your entire past in order to embrace nothingness and to be totally immersed in your own body and mental experiences that exist prior to your mind. There's so much of you still being perceived after your mind is gone. The mind, you could say, is an offensive product of evolution, put there to help you survive and your kids to survive. You think about solutions to existential problems. But once you reject existential problems as being no big deal, then you're free of all that. You're then free to paint your house black if you want, or fire engine red, just for kicks, to see how it disturbs the neighborhood. Just like Robert offered me that he wear the same shirts as I do for a period of time to see what that would drag up, what that would start. Your own self is so magnificent. Once you find it, it's peace within. And you cultivate it by repetitive meditation, perhaps by prayer. Prayer is a way of shedding your will, and leaving it for God to do or take. When you become empty of desire or direction, and sort of become like a fruit dropping to the ground from a fruit tree. And then that begins your own existence as a transcendental being who is no longer of this world or of any other world, who dwells in different worlds, different existences, where there's all kinds of experiences of energies, tremors, peace, love, and just a powerful sense of being. Now, however, I do wish that more spiritual teachers, especially in the United States, speak about what they call realization and what they call their own realization and how they fit together. Because you want to find somebody that can help you gain freedom from your own mind, from your life situation. What's the use of living life the way you have all your life until you start spirituality to figure out what the fuck's going on? I've mentioned him before. I don't remember what his name is anymore, but I had a student that was with me for 8 or 9 years. And he used to say, when he gets up to pearly gates, he wanted to ask St. Peter, what the hell was this all about? What was life all about? What was that shit show that I just got through? What was it all about? He went on to be a really well-known psychotherapist, along with his wife, who was also a psychotherapist. Back in, where was this? I'm not sure anymore. What city? I've lived in so many different ones. Now, can you close your eyes and sink into your own existence? And lower into your heart and into your gut. Leaving your mind and your head behind, because that's exactly where you would find the mind in your head if you looked for it. Each chakra can be experienced differently and not necessarily in a way of progressive realizations. Because after a while, there's no in or out, up or down, or sequences. All that disappears. And you're yourself at all times. And you're quiet. You couldn't imagine shouting out like you did 20 years ago. Because all the time, You're enrolled in a program of peace given to you by your guru, or by reading about gurus and what they practice and what they said. Something seems right about what they're saying, and you feel you're at the right time, the right place in your own development to make use of what's being taught there. Mark, have you any, what would you call it, sayings about what I just thought, what I just broadcast out?
No, because you've described it so eloquently, and all I would do is rephrase it in the way that I'd like, the way I experience it, which would be very perhaps meaningful to me, but not very meaningful to somebody else. But I would like to say that you talked about Zen, reading about Zen teachings. I have been reading a book called Dropping Ashes on the Buddha, the Zen teachings. You know that one?
What?
You know that book?
Yeah, sure.
The Zen teachings of Master Sung San, who is a teacher of yours before Robert, right?
He was one of my teachers. At the same time, I was with Robert.
Yeah.
There's an ashram in Los Angeles, Talmasa, Tahl, Ma, Ma, Sa, and that's in Koreatown. And the brother is the abbot there, who had a temple to run. So he invited Americans and other teachers in just to get a little recognition, because he had a big building and a theater with it that we could put events in. But Sansanim was quite a character. He seemed so lively. His bald head was not very tall and always happy. And also, he yelled at people as loudly as I've ever heard anybody yell at anybody. You could go to the ashram and you could hear him throughout the whole house screaming at somebody, getting him to do it right. Talmasa Sansanim was a very, very, very powerful teacher. Another one was Sasaki Roshi, where I was with him at Mount Baldy in around 1981 or 82. I don't remember anymore. Or even in the 70s. Does anybody have any more questions to try to trip me up or point out the fact that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about?
I have one more thing to say before the influx of the vast numbers of questions that are going to permeate our discussion here. But this whole thing, like the world doesn't exist, the body doesn't exist. I get it now. It's like, yeah, the world exists, sure, but I'm no longer recreating a mental model of it in my moment-to-moment perception. If I think about it, sure, there's a world out there, but what I'm immersed in is my immediate, direct perception. That's the only thing that one can know for sure. It is the only thing that is real. Everything else is imagination.
Yes. I'm certain that soon you will be your own teacher. Hope you stay around, though, for a while, even as you start your own practice somewhere, or are there to take over when I die, if I ever die. I was in that position with Robert when he left Los Angeles. I went to Mount Baldy, or not Mount Baldy, but Sedona. I felt like I had lost my family. My family did not consider me a teacher, even though Robert made me the announcer of all the activities and so forth, introductions. And I didn't want to follow him to Sedona because the problems at that time was mounting so strongly to prevent me from going there with him. I think back at that time, how rough it was. A few weeks earlier, I had approached Robert and said I thought it was time for us to move to Sedona. Because I liked Sedona. I had visited there a few times. And Robert had always spoken about moving elsewhere. But I found out it's really hard to do something like moving with the guru unless you had matured beyond the strife of everyday life with all of its ownership problems, relationship problems. I thought I wanted to go. But when I visited him in Sedona, I noticed he wasn't altogether happy with the situation he found up there after he moved. They promised him everything. And then they began dropping the ball after he got there. And he completed the journey and moved everything to Sedona, including his little dog. I used to love that little dog. I used to take care of him, take him for every couple of months to be washed and groomed. And Dimitri died there in Sedona in March of 1997, 98? I don't know what year it was. And there's that story that Dimitri was dying. All of the students were seeing him on the ground and not moving. I don't know the exact statement of the story, but Robert went in to see Dimitri. And when Robert came into the room, Dimitri sat up and they stared in each other's eyes for 3 or 4 minutes. And then Dimitri died. And Robert later told the people there that Dimitri was having difficulty passing. So Robert helped him pass. Don't know why people don't use the term die. I guess pass sounds easier to digest and escapes the concept of death. Are there any statements or questions? Eric, what about you? Michael, what about you?
Are you dying soon?
No,
You don't look too good.
I look really good.
Okay. You don't have like a secret diagnosis you're not telling us or anything?
No,
All right.
Maxie, do you have anything to say? You haven't said anything in a long time. VJ, what about you?
Nothing.
Vadine, what about you?
I had to find a strategy to continue not losing my sanity and health, and it was whatever happens is God's will, and that's how I've been living.
That's how what?
That's how I've been living, is remembering that all day long and all night long, usually as well, because I'm not awake, I'm not asleep. So that's the most that's the hardest thing I have to know is God's will, is staying awake all the time. But everything else, it seems to have made a huge difference to me. I don't know whether it's just a kind
What
of
makes a huge difference?
philosophy. My coming to the decision, that everything that has happens and is happening to me, and everything that I haven't liked and has upset me is all God's will. So I don't need to blame it on anybody else or any
So
other.
you blame it on God?
Well, I don't know who God is, so I can't do that really. I seem to, I mean, I don't know whether it's God or source or consciousness or existence or infinite intelligence, but whatever, I'm quite happy with that. Even if it's a coping strategy, I don't care anymore.
Adam, what about you?
I usually try to come here with a good stump the guru question ready for you when you ask, and then by the end of this, I get relaxed, and then I don't want to. I realize it's not important anyway, so I'd rather just be in your presence and be with everybody. But
David, what about you? Or you today?
We don't hear you. David, we don't hear you when you speak. At least I don't hear you.
VJ, how about you? Catherine?
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing with us. It's very important to me, and I'm sure it's important to everyone here too. Thank you very much.
Let me go on that a little bit. What do you mean? Thank you for what?
Well, for sharing your experience and your insights with us, and sometimes taking our hands to guide us inside ourselves.
You feel when you
Right
can-
now,
Yeah.
oh, a bit stressed because I'm talking. If I weren't talking, before I started talking, I felt relaxed and not as much as in my mind as usual. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you much. Raju, how are you?
Very good, Jay. And
Where are you located?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Where?
Thousand Oaks.
What?
Thousand Oaks. To be precise, Moore Park, but was it 2000 Oaks, as you maybe.
I used to live there, Raju. Sorry to cut in. I'm from Thousand Oaks also.
Oh,
And
really?
Moore Park. Yeah.
You used to, so you're not here now.
No, I'm in Texas now, but I grew up there.
Oh, nice.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, good to know.
What part of Texas?
I'm in Austin.
Well, I understand that's almost civilized.
Not by Texas standards, but by maybe California standards.
My son will be coming over there for job to Austin in May after his 4th year.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a great tech hub here. A lot of tech companies and stuff.
Edgy, just again, not a statement or anything, but knowledge or wisdom or experience, and finally.
Let me turn up my microphone. I can't quite hear you that well. Okay, try again.
I'm audible now, but
Good.
the wisdom or realization experience is the one who has it is difficult to explain, and the one who doesn't can never understand. So the gap is just so huge, and satsang is the bridge to where you are really explaining the inexplicable, and we are
I'll
trying
tell
to
you,
catch it.
there's such a large gap between being immersed in the world of men with all of their education, all their drive, all their habits, being scientists, being engineers, being military people, being politicians. And there's such a vast difference between that and somebody like Robert or Ramana that escaped the world and give you crumbs that you can follow them into this transcendental existence where you leave the world of busybody work, of building civilizations, building families, and instead just being aware of yourself in all circumstances. And soon you become God. Not that soon. It takes a long while. But it's not as short a time as a lot of teachers tell you. It's a long developmental time. Eric, how are you? Okay. Let's go deeper into ourselves for a few minutes. Listen to my words. and just relax. Let out a long breath and feel your body collapse upon itself. Here you're in a rest state. But imagine dropping deeper into your body. I've actually had these kinds of Kundalini experiences years ago, and they're kind of breathtaking when you first happen to experience them, and not so much afterwards once they become familiar. They're just another level of your own being that a lot of people aren't aware of at all. Feel yourself. Feel your heart, your gut, your butt, your legs, your shoulders, your back, your head. Right now, I have no words inside going on. The mind is off somewhere below me and to my right. If it has something that wants to tell me, it'll tell me. But I don't use the mind anymore to teach. What I'm teaching is about the primary state, the zero state, where the mind is no longer the predominating element, aiming the attention everywhere, here and there and so forth, and ending the attention getting things. But I just rest in the experience of all the different things I hear, see, and smell while in this room and while listening to you people. It's a magical place to go. And I don't mean that in a silly place, but immersing in one's own self has such a dramatic effect on everything in you. Your fears are washed away. Your sense of obligations decreases. But Robert stayed with his family mostly, for most of the years. He was able to participate fully in family life, despite also being partially in a transcendent world. Not one of love so much, although he emphasized that because so many other people in spirituality has taught about that. But love is just another feeling we experience. It may have a cleansing effect and so forth, but so does shitting. And we don't talk about that much. To be in one's own self means to be immersed in the wonderment of being able to perceive the world around me, as well as observing a great happiness inside of me that comes with submerging my body and my heart and my gut in the magic experience of my own being. And magic is a crappy word to put, but the divine nature of myself is noted, accepted, and worshipped within me. Bernadette, how have you, Chris been doing?
Okay, we're good. It just feels really, really good to be here.
What?
It feels really, really good to be here.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it?
Yes.
Lawrence, what is your experience? You've been very quietly sitting, so I assume it's mostly positive.
Yes, I've got the flu, so I believe I have a little fever, but I'm totally listening to you as usual, and I like thinking inside as you suggest. It's very beautiful, and it's like I feel allowed. It's something strange, as if I had repressed that somehow. So here I am, very happy to see you all.
Adam, can you respond to Lawrence?
Sure. Laurence, we're glad to have you here as well, and hope you feel better. And but grateful to have your presence here with us. You can feel it.
Viju, when are you going to put up the photo of another city behind you? When are you going to transcend New York and go to Cleveland or someplace like that? There you go. That's still New York, isn't it? There you go. You've just transitioned out of civilization. How do you feel inside as having left that city?
This is the Mount Soma in Smoky Mountains.
What?
In Smoky Mountains, Mount Soma.
Okay. I love you all. Why don't you sit in silence afterwards for 10 or 20 minutes and just relax into yourself? There's nothing more to do. This is Sunday. Take the rest of the day off and just relax into yourself, and slowly afterwards go out for a walk in the woods if they're close, the mountains if they're close. Be with nature in silence. Don't talk to anybody for a while. Just be with yourself. I love you all. Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.